What is going on, collectors? How you doing today? I hope you're having a good one, because it's Steven here bringing you a review of a Dragon Ball Z Figuarts. Yeah, it's been a while, so let's kick it off with one of the most recent ones, the SH Figuarts Saiyan Saga, Scouter, whatever you want to call him, Vegeta Renewal. With the first being a Bandai Premium Webshop exclusive, this 2.0 figure is a general retail release with updated articulation and detail. Yeah, right. No. It might move a little bit better, but collectors have been throwing a fit over the design choices for this figure. And if you're watching this, you're probably on the edge to see whether or not this is any good. So let's cut the tail off of this intro and take a look to see whether or not this one's worth adding into your collection. So really quick, for those of you who don't know the difference between a web exclusive and a general retail release, web exclusive means it's only sold through the Bandai Premium web shop, though Bluefin may bring it over to the United States for general retail release. However, a retail release, a general release, is referring to Japan. This is where it would be available on the store shelf, so this way you can buy it, and this is what this Vegeta is. Web exclusives are not reissued. They could be repainted, but retail releases, general releases, they can be reissued. Okay? So, in all fairness, the figure is very close to what we got to the prototype, which was displayed at different events and in the promotional pictures. So the figure doesn't really get knocked down in points there. It does deviate from that a little bit because it seems to be a bit brighter in coloration, but otherwise, from quality control, it's a pretty solid match. But that doesn't mean it's good. However, it does have quite a few redeeming factors, and those shouldn't be dismissed entirely. The hair on this one pretty much looks like the Super Saiyan Renewal hair, but black. So, yeah. But the faces, whoo boy. At a distance, they look fine, except one, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But up close, and I was actually surprised by this and didn't notice this until I was taking the pictures, there are little teeny tiny black streaks that you might be able to see here. I had to really zoom in to see them, but they're there. Minor, so perfectionists, yeah. But anyway, the decals look good, and the wash to fill in the details, such as the ears, on all faces but one are fine. Then we move down, and the biggest part of the figure, which is absolutely atrocious, comes into play. While the sculpt is rather nice, we do have new shoulders and such to make this figure a bit more accurate to the design. The paint apps are kinda hit and miss, especially around the stomach area with that yellow for the armor. But the big issue that detracts from the figure overall, no panel lining on the thing. There are no details, none, zip, zilch, nada, goodbye. Sure, the sculpted armor looks great, fantastic, but the lack of lining and bright paint? Yeah, no. Kinda looks like it's sculpted out of cheap Play-Doh. By the end of this review, I wouldn't be surprised if the figure melted under these lights. It's a damn shame. A figure from years ago with outdated techniques in terms of manufacturing and engineering at the prototype stage has more intricate paint detailing than this figure. Anyway, to sum it up, Vegeta looks really close to the prototype, so for the most part, we're getting exactly what we saw. But at the same time, Bandai could have fixed a lot of these issues before this figure hit the market. Alright, so Vegeta's articulation is pretty much identical to the Super Saiyan Renewal's articulation, but there are some small changes that make it better, and some small changes which make it worse. So the head, neck, it's all the same from the original. We have a ball joint where the head plugs in, and then we have swivel hinge connection that makes everything else in there just work really well. So you can move Vegeta's head around, you can get him to bob and all that fun stuff. Pretty neat. Then the neck plugs into the body on a ball joint there, so you can see you can move Vegeta's head around a little bit more than that, which is always cool. Now we have the shoulder pads. Those are on hinges, and they go all the way up, which is pretty cool. Now, they are blocked by Vegeta's hair, but that's kind of a non-issue. Something I take note of, though, even down here, these are on hinges as well. The hinges are very small, and it feels like the connection is very brittle. So do be careful when you're moving different parts of Vegeta around so this way you don't snap them, okay? All right, cool. We got that out of the way. Just like the Super Saiyan Renewal, we do have butterfly hinges that allow you to move Vegeta's arms forward. However, take note, they did not take this little lip here into consideration. So when you go to move Vegeta's arm forward, the shoulder sculpt will bump into that little lip, and you won't be able to move his arms that far forward. So posing for things like, let's say, Gallic Gun, or if you did want to have this Vegeta use Final Flash, hey, you know, you can be creative. It's your figure. Do keep that in mind. But we do have those butterfly hinges that allow you to move Vegeta's arms forward. They do plug in on a ball joint as usual, and they do move up on hinges. And as you can see here, they have nicer range of movement than the Super Saiyan Renewal because they're not as bulky, and that hinge does continue further up the shoulder. So this way, again, you have more fluid movement. We do have bicep swivels here, so that is awesome to see. We do have the standard double hinge elbow joint, where once again, the hinge that is closer into the bicep is a little bit difficult to move, but it still can move, which is always good. We have the standard SH Figuarts style swivel hinge wrists. So there is a peg that plugs into the forearm piece that swivels around. We do have hinge movement in one direction that you can manipulate, so this way you can move it in another direction. And then the hands plug into the wrists on ball joints, so this way you can get a little bit more movement there if you wanted to. But hey, you're going to probably moving that swivel around more than you're going to be moving that ball joint. Now we're going to go to the main torso articulation, and here's where one of the changes would be. So we do have that ball joint that allows you to move Vegeta forward and back, and there is a hinge there. But it can also pull up and pull down. I don't necessarily know if that's an intended feature for Vegeta, but it can do it on mine, so that's pretty awesome. So that allows you to move Vegeta a little bit further back and a little bit more forward, but standardly that's about as far down as he can move, and that's about as far back. So they did adjust the issue of Vegeta not being able to move too further back compared to the Super Saiyan Renewal, but hey, such is life. That's pretty cool. Now, to take note for the tail piece here, it does plug in on a ball joint, so the alternate tail piece that doesn't have it wrapped around Vegeta's waist, you can twist it and turn it around, but for this one, you cannot. You'll see that a little bit in the accessory section coming up. We already went over the flaps here. They have hinges, but we do have a waist joint that is on a ball joint. I'm not going to pop this one off like I have done in my Super Saiyan Renewal review, but I'm going to assume that we do have that ball joint hinge combination, where the ball joint is resting on a hinge, allowing you to move him forward and back in a more fluid motion. Just like the Super Saiyan Renewal, we do have that swivel hinge combo here in the hips, where swivels plug into the crotch, and then we have hinges that allow you to move his legs out like that. Unfortunately, they did not learn from the first one, and the sculpt does block the articulation, and that's about as far out as they can move. Here is about as far forward and as far back. So, hey, you know, that works. We also have swivels, where the hips plug into the thighs. We have the double hinge knees. We have the same style ball jointed ankles, which kind of work. This one will come off on occasion. And then we have the toe hinges that move up like that and don't move down. So all in all, Vegeta, yeah, there are some hindrances to the articulation, but at the same time, there are some improvements to Vegeta that make it work well. So all in all, for an armored character, the articulation is pretty solid. And now for the accessories, and sit down, Bandai, because we got to have a little talk. Seriously. Okay, we get alternate faces for quite a few different emotions, and a few of these are reused from the Super Saiyan faces, redecorated for this Vegeta. We get an alternate head without the hole for the scouter. Cool. 2 scouters, one with and one without the data display. A couple of hands, including one individual one with a crushed scouter. We get folded arms and an alternate tail. Now, we lose out on some hands from the first release, who knows why, including the perfect chance for a Gallic Gun effect part. First, we're going to talk about how you swap off the head. All you have to do is just grip the head and pop it off, and then pop the new one on, lining up the ball joint. But just be careful here. Either I'm a moron, or you have to put a bit of force into it. Don't break it. Just be careful lining it up. Take your time. And if needed, use heat to make the socket a little more pliable so you can get the ball joint in. And now the faces. We get the default neutral face. We get one face where he's gritting his teeth and he's kinda sorta bearing it, if you know what I mean. We get one angry face where he's yelling, and then we get this garbage smirking face. Now, you see, Bandai decided to use a wash on these faces to sort of bring out the details here. But on this specific face, it pulled in that little dimple there. And, yeah, it kind of looks like it's a burn mark from the factory. Unacceptable. Why? Because you guys already did this before and it was fine with the Super Saiyan Renewal! Anyway, to swap out the faces, you pull the hair off, you pop the face on, making sure you line up the pegs, and boom! Now he's even more angsty, or he's smirking, or whatever else you would want. Now, for the Scouter, all you have to do is make sure you're using the correct head and pop it on behind the ear. Now, both of them look rather good, unless you get Bandai'd, and you get a gray paint blob on yours. Boy, I absolutely love this. If you love it as much as I do, though, just have him crush it. With this hand. Yeah, so this Scouter hand, it is nothing but translucent plastic coated with white, chalky pastel-like paint. And as you can see, there are clear chunks on that. If you try to take any of those chunks off, be warned, it will look like garbage. Oh, speaking of hands, we get a few other alternate ones like I said before, and they're sculpted pretty well. But, we get hands for what we can assume would be the Gallic gun, and we get some splayed out hands. Nothing more. You just pop them off at the wrist and then pop the new ones on. Now we're going to talk about the tail, and this might be a bit confusing for some because the default tail looks nice and it looks completely sealed in the back, but there are actually two ball joints in the tail, one at the connection part in the back by his tailbone, and you just pop that off. But then the tail actually wraps around in a ball joint in the back. You just pop that off. Then it's completely pliable, so you can just wrap this off of Vegeta and then pop the new tail in. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we're going to talk about the folded arm parts. Technically, the normal arm parts are the accessories, but no. Now, to swap this out, all you're going to have to do is pop the arms off one way or another. Then, what I recommend you do is pop one portion of the folded arm parts onto one shoulder, then pop them onto the other. Now, you're going to need to be careful here. Too much force, and that's not a good combo with the small joints. One issue is that the pegs might break because, again, they're small. Be gentle. If you need help, don't be afraid to use heat. Now, here the paint detail is actually pretty nice. For something that's massively manufactured in China, you really can't fault it here for too much. So, that's really it. Yeah. All in all, pretty good. It's kind of a shame we don't get a Gallic Gun effect part. Even if they just wanted to repaint that generic blast that Ultimate Gohan came with that they did for the Time Patrollers Kamehameha, no hands for a signature pose where he was going to fight Goku, no face in pain where he's getting choked out by Frieza like they included with the first release, no dirty fireworks hand, but we get the bare minimum. But thankfully, the Super Saiyan Vegeta Renewal has accessories and stuff that's compatible with this Vegeta, including hands you can swap to get that iconic pose, and even get him to turn into Super Saiyan if you want. Or you can even get the Super Saiyan body to have a normal head, and if for some reason you want, you can pretend that the Cell Saga Vegeta can now use a Scouter or whatever. So there's the silver lining there for those looking for it. Only issue is that the skin tone is different, which is weird because you'd think that the Super Saiyan would be lighter and not the Saiyan Saga, but hey, have fun, kids. It's up to your imagination. And now the size comparison with a bunch of other figures alongside the Super Saiyan Renewal, because I am not going to reuse these comparison shots for that review. No, I wouldn't do that. As you can see, Vegeta is appropriately small, but maybe he's just a little bit out of scale for those who absolutely need him to be the perfect size. So, buy now, skip, or wait for that good deal. Despite looking like the prototype, he looks very unfinished, but a simple Gundam marker to customize it should help. with articulation that's not exactly super overly impressive for a standard action figure, but for an armored character, it's really good. With bare minimum accessories to qualify for a Saiyan Saga Vegeta. All in all, it's not a bad figure, just middle ground. But for about 45... Oh, wait. They wanted a little bit more than half of $100 for this? Nah, get it on sale. You'll need the Super Saiyan 2.0 for a complete package, and to get it to go the full mile, you will need to customize this figure. Again, it's not a bad figure, but it's clear that Bandai thought they could squeeze a few bucks out of you. If you're a fan of Vegeta, this is definitely a figure to pick up, but if you lower your expectations a bit, I think you will be even more satisfied. Well, that's it for this video, but that doesn't mean you need to close out just yet. There are a few other videos that just popped up on your screen, so go ahead and click on those to watch some more of my videos, and then there's the description to check out, where I've linked to where you can get this figure or others like it, and the credits to see how this video was made, so be sure to check that out. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe. I love hearing from you. Thanks for watching, collectors, and I'll catch ya in the next video.